Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to be showing you how to make really great fresh pasta with your KitchenAid stand mixer using KitchenAid's pasta attachments. If that's something that you've shied away from because it seemed too complicated, then this is the video for you. So you ready? Let's get into this. This is just a basic pasta recipe. It's really simple and there's only a few ingredients. We have all-purpose flour, we've got a few eggs, and we got a little bit of salt. As far as attachments for your mixer, you need your beater blade, your dough hook, and a minimum of 2 pasta attachments. First, you have your main attachment that makes the sheets of pasta, and then you need some sort of cutting attachment, like this fettuccine attachment that I have here. KitchenAid and some third parties make a lot of these. The ones I have are the fettuccine, obviously. I've got one for linguine also. This one is for angel hair. And I also have a ravioli attachment. Works like that. But for this video, we'll be using the one that makes fettuccine. Even though the recipe is super simple, if you want to make it, all the ingredients and measurements are down in the description of the video, along with the calorie counts, the protein, the carbs, and the fat. The first thing you want to do is add the flour to the mixing bowl. Throw in a pinch of salt. And we're going to add in some of our eggs. You can see that I have 4 eggs here. I'm only going to be using 3 of these initially. I'll be putting in the 4th one if the mix is too dry, and I'll be leaving it out if it's not. To make room for the eggs, we're going to form this into a little bit of a volcano down here. Just like that. Kind of like when you used to make sandcastles on the beach. Kind of same deal. Kind of fun too, actually. And I'm going to add in 3 of these eggs. Just be careful not to get any shell in there, because that would kind of suck. There's 2. And there's 3. Now we'll slide on the beater attachment here. Make sure that's locked into place. Bring the mixer down. And I'm going to run this on about a 2 speed just to get this combined and to get the texture right. You just go ahead and let that mix until it sort of smooths out so we can get a good idea of where we're at. Okay, that's mixed long enough. And you can see that this is just way too dry here. So we're going to throw this other egg in and see how that affects things. And then we just continue. Okay, and once it gets combined, it'll look kind of like this. This is the consistency that you want in this. It looks a little bit like cookie dough. You don't want it to be super wet, but you don't want it to be crumbly either. Once you have it like this, we can take this blade off and we'll replace that one with the dough hook. Now put this down in there. Be sure to lock the top down on this part. And we're gonna run this until we get a nice smooth ball of dough. That should take probably right around 2 minutes or so. Okay, let's check this out. See how it looks. And it should look just about like that when you're done. Next, we're going to take our dough ball. I like to work it a little bit to get it a little bit smoother and sort of in one piece, just to kind of get it into more of a ball shape. You really don't have to do this part, but I just like to because I'm kind of anal that way. Then we can just ball this thing up like so, wrap it in a little plastic wrap, just kind of loosely. And we'll set this in the refrigerator and let it sit there for about 30 minutes. And once that dough ball's been sitting in the fridge long enough for the gluten to do its magic, we can take this out, take off the plastic, and we're going to slice this into 4 roughly evenly sized pieces. For the rest of this, we're going to be using a little bit of flour to keep things from sticking together. And you can either take that flour and pinch it over the top of your dough, or you can use a baking sifter like this. This is a lot easier. So now we're going to take the accessory cap off your KitchenAid mixer. And the first attachment we're going to use is just the flat one to make the sheets of dough. So we'll put that in here and lock it in. And this thing is going to be really adjustable. Some of these have the highest number with the widest gap, and some of them have the lowest number with the widest gap. This one's not a KitchenAid branded one, so the numbers actually work opposite to what the KitchenAid attachments are. So we are gonna set this to 8, which is open as much as possible. Next, we'll lay down a little bit of flour on our cutting board here. And we're going to mash our dough as flat as we can. We don't want to worry too much about turning it into pasta right now. We're gonna let the machine do its work, but we're gonna sort of help it out a little bit. Get this spread out just a little bit. Just like that should do. I'd put a little bit of flour in the machine too, just to help prevent that from sticking. And we're gonna be running this dough through the machine, coming down through the top. You're not gonna wanna have your mixer set on anything higher than a 2 speed. And like I said, we're starting with the most wide open setting that you have on here. And after running it through, we're gonna be folding it over, running it through again, and we'll be progressively closing this down a little bit until we get to the thickness that you want for your pasta. So we'll start this up and run this through. Once that comes through, we'll fold it over again and run it through again a couple of times. And we're basically doing this and folding over just to make sure this ends up in one piece, so when you cut your pasta, it doesn't break off into smaller pieces or anything like that. And don't do what I did there. You see how I put it in there at an angle and it's pushing towards the side of the machine? You really want to try to put this in as straight as you possibly can. Otherwise it does that. And that. If it feels like it's a little bit wet to you, don't be afraid to use a little bit of flour. Another thing to note is when you fold this over, when you feed it back through the machine again, be sure to feed it through on the side that you folded, not this side. You can do it, but it's going to create a mess at the end of it and probably create an air bubble or something like that. Anyway, to me, I think the results come out a lot better when you do it this way. But let me know down in the comments if you've done this the other way and have had better results. Another advantage of folding over the pasta is that you end up getting nice wide sheets that take up the entire width of the tool here. It also tends to make the sheets a little bit shorter too, so they are easier to deal with. Okay, I'm gonna get a little bit more flour on this, a little bit more on my machine, and I'm gonna adjust this down one, and then rinse and repeat. From now on, I'm not gonna do the folding over part. We're just gonna leave it alone. That way we can really get this stuff to stick together. And each time you run this through, take a look at your pasta and see how thick it is. When it gets to the thickness that you want, that's when you know to stop. In our case, we're gonna make this just a wee bit thinner. Be sure to get that in there straight. Also, don't pull on your pasta, just let it slide through the machine. Pull it on the back, and don't try to pull it through. Let your KitchenAid do its work. You'll notice that each time you do this, this gets a little bit thinner and longer here too, so it's a little bit harder to deal with, but after you've done this once or twice, I think you're gonna get the hang of it and it's gonna be pretty easy. I think we'll go one thinner here. So on my machine, I'm down to a 5. That's about as thin as I'm gonna go, I think. See? And that's looking pretty good. So once you've got one done, then we're gonna set this on our sheet pan and work on the next one. Just be sure when you're starting back over that you reset this back to the largest setting again. Otherwise, it's going to be a disaster. By the way, if this is your first time here and you want to learn some cool new recipes, get some great cooking tips and tricks and all sorts of other kitchen related things, then start now by subscribing to the channel and clicking the notification bell so you never miss a thing. Alright, once you've finished your sheets like this, then we'll be able to cut our pasta. So we can pull this off, put in our fettuccine attachment. Didn't want to go on there for a second. Give it a little bit of flour so nothing sticks. Just don't make a mess like I just did right there. And we'll be ready to start making some pasta balls. After we cut this pasta, we're going to want to dry it. So we have two different options. We can either put it onto a drying rack like this, Or we can just make the pasta into little pre-portioned nests, lightly flour it, and then we can either let it sit like that until we're ready to cook it, or in that case, we'd even be able to freeze it where it would keep for a couple of months. If you've got a drying rack like that, I'd recommend using that if you plan on cooking the pasta right away. But if you're planning to store it for later use, I do the nesting option. We'll do 2 sheets on there and 2 sheets down here. Okay, so we can go ahead and start this back up again. Low speed. Just like that. Looks pretty, doesn't it? So now I can just hang this on the drying rack, just kind of space it out so it can dry and so it doesn't stick together. You could put a little bit more flour on this if you wanted to, but we floured it quite a bit earlier, so we don't really have to do that now. The straighter you get this in here, the better your pasta is going to be. There we go. That first one I got in there a tiny bit crooked, so you can kind of tell some of the pieces on the very end weren't perfect, and we're kind of going to have something similar going on to this one, but no big deal. Still going to be good. And onto the rack. For these last 2 sheets, we're going to ball this pasta up. We should be able to get 2 balls of pasta out of each of these sheets. And that's if you're making pretty big balls of pasta. So we're just going to divide this up into 2 little strands. Pick it up by the middle, just like that. And then in your hand, you're going to let that sit in your hand and then twist as you bring it down closer. You don't want to do this hard. You want it to be very, very loose. Remember, if you mush this together, you're going to end up with smushed pasta and it's going to stick together. So just like that. So let's say you wanted to freeze these for a later date. You would just leave them in your sheet pan, and we're going to throw these in the freezer just like this for about 20 minutes. That just gives them a chance to firm up a little bit.
12 o'clock midnight.
After it's been 20 minutes, we can pull these back out of the freezer. Stick them into some airtight Tupperware. Throw on the lid. And then these should be good in the freezer for a couple of months. For the pasta that we were going to cook right away, all we got to do is put a pot of water on, heat it up on a medium high, and be sure to remember a couple of things about the pot. Number 1, always make sure that there's quite a bit of water in there because the pasta is going to soak up a lot of it. And also use a pot that's much larger size than you think you need. That way the pasta can spread out and has less tendency to stick as well. Once your water reaches a boil, you can add in a little bit of salt, mix that in, and then we're going to put in the pasta. Initially, be sure to mix that around a little bit to separate it out. Otherwise, again, you run a higher risk of sticking, which we don't want. And also remember that this is fresh pasta, so it is going to cook really quick, probably in about 3 minutes or so. So you really need to keep an eye on it. It's going to be done a lot sooner than you think. Be sure to check your pasta once in a while, just to see if it's al dente yet. And that means it should be cooked, but it should still be firm, which is right where we're at. So we'll turn off this heat, and we're going to drain this water. Once you drain that, I'll just return this back to the burner, put this on about a medium low, and I'm just going to create some sauce for this right in the pan. So chuck in a little bit of butter. You don't really need a recipe for this. You can just use what you got laying around. A little bit of heavy cream. This is just a fast way to make this sauce. Normally I would make this separately, but I wasn't really planning on doing this for the video, but I figured why not, right? Once that sauce starts bubbling a little bit, we'll throw in some Parmesan cheese. Stir that around and let that cream soak it up. And not only am I recording a video for you, but I'm making lunch too. And once that sauce thickens up a little bit, turn the heat off, stir that around a little bit more, and I'm going to mix in a tad bit of pepper, and this will be ready to serve. Not bad for something just thrown together, huh? Creamy. Don't worry, because if you've never made fresh pasta before, it does look like it's a little bit daunting, but after you've done it once or twice, you're gonna see that it's super easy to do. That, and if you're a pasta lover, there's just something so much better about making fresh pasta for yourself at home versus buying anything out of the store, especially that dry stuff. If you'd like a little bit more information about the KitchenAid mixer that I used in this video or any of those attachments, I do have Amazon affiliate links to those down in the description of the video. If you buy anything through those links, I do make a small commission, but it doesn't change the price that you pay, 1 cent. If you like this video, you might like this video right here where I reviewed the Philips 7000 series pasta maker. You can see a distinct difference in the way you make pasta in that versus the way you make pasta with your KitchenAid mixer, and both come out really great. Well, that's it for now. I hope to see you back again here really soon, and until that time, I'm Joe, and I hope you have a phenomenal day. Take it easy.